This is the NonSequitur Show. Season 1, Episode 4. Unholy. Doubt or Devout. Featuring the Membership Director and Editor-in-Chief of American Atheists magazine, Pamela Whissle. And now, your DJs of Doubt, Kyle Curtis and Steve McRae.
Hello, beautiful people. This is NonSequitur, where bold ideas are righteous, unique perspectives are gospel, and strong opinions are sacred. I'm Kyle Curtis, that's Steve McRae, and momentarily we'll be joined by American Atheists Membership Director and Editor-in-Chief of American Atheist magazine, Pamela Whissle. Today we'll be discussing how the American Atheist Association is working every day to normalize and destigmatize the word atheist. And we'll also include details of the upcoming convention in Oklahoma City, and we'll reveal which TV doctor will be making a surprise house call as keynote speaker. NonSequitur is proud to partner with The Geek Room, a weekly show on YouTube covering the latest news, tech, games, and all the cringeworthy videos from parts of the web you never knew existed. Join Frank Wolf and Brandon Law this Friday for Let's Riff at 9 p.m. with special guest Shannon Q. Joining us now is Pamela Whissle, Membership Director and Editor-in-Chief of American Atheist magazine. Pam has been Editor-in-Chief of American Atheist magazine since 2011. Her MA is from the University of Cincinnati, and her BA is from the University of Dayton. Prior to coming to American Atheist, she was a local news anchor for a national public radio affiliate in Kentucky, a television news writer for the CBS station in Cincinnati, and an announcer for Cincinnati's public television pledge drives. Under her direction, the magazine made publishing history when it went from a subscription-only publication to one that is sold in bookstores throughout the United States and Canada. In doing so, American Atheist has become the first periodical in U.S. history to appear on newsstands with the word atheist in the title. In addition, Pamela oversees membership programs and the growth of American Atheist Member Support Network. Pam, it is such a pleasure to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us, and how are you doing?
I'm just great, and I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, let's start with Genesis. In the beginning, there was Pam. Tell us about your journey to the American Atheist Association.
Now, you said this podcast is going to go, an hour? Maybe an hour and 15 minutes. Wow. Okay. So this is kind of a long story, and there's a few ways to tell it. Let's say, okay, you didn't ask me what my religious history is, so I will just tell you how I got involved with American Atheists. And that is that I was living in an apartment in northern Kentucky, right across the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. And my next door neighbors, they were a Catholic parish, and they decided that they were going to ring their church bells every 15 minutes, 24/7. And the bells got the number of bongs got increasingly more as the hour went on. So there were like 4 at quarter after the hour, 6 at bottom of the hour, 8 at quarter till, and then 12 at the top of the hour. Then they would ring the hour. So at 11 o'clock, you'd have 12 plus 11 equals 23. This is 11 o'clock at night. It was nuts. And the weird thing was that nobody wanted to say anything about this church. I mean, none of my neighbors wanted to say anything. This was in Bellevue, Kentucky. It's a delightful place to live. Very, very walkable neighborhood. You can walk to everything. It's right across the river from Cincinnati. I love the place to death. But everybody on the city council belongs to that parish. And it was weird. I got like maybe 2 or 3 people to, maybe make a complaint with me. So they had to turn their church bells off at like 10 at night because of the noise ordinance. But other than that, they could do whatever they want. And that's exactly what they did. They did whatever they want. So I get in touch with the chief of police, and he says, well, here's what I would suggest. I would suggest writing to the pastor. And if you don't get anywhere, you write to the bishop And if you don't get anywhere, contact the county attorney. So we did. The 3 or 4 of us, however many there were, wrote a letter to the pastor, which went unanswered. Then we wrote a letter to the bishop, and I have that letter taped on my office door. Okay, that's how important this is to my path to American Atheists. And the bishop basically, yeah, exactly. So the bishop basically said, it's my understanding the problem has been solved because they were turned off at night. And besides, these bells are the voice of God. And if there's ever a time when we need to be listening to the voice of God, it's now. And I'm thinking to myself, now? Really? Not during the Holocaust? Whatever. But I was actually kind of happy because he had in writing that I had to adhere to his religion. And he's not allowed to do that, right? Because I have civil rights. So I'm all excited. I go to the county attorney. I give them, the letters, and I make them an Excel spreadsheet to total up at, how many times these bells toll per day and what's the frequency. And it turned out that this is with them being turned off at night, 500 times a day, 600 on the weekends. And the frequency averaged out to more frequently than once every 2 minutes. So I drop my stuff off to the county attorney. I follow up, a few days later. I get assigned to the assistant county attorney, and he says, "Yeah, I received this. I received your papers, and this is ridiculous. We've got a similar situation going on in the other township. Let me just check some laws, see what's on the books, and I'll get back to you." Of course, he never got back to me, and I had to follow up with him. So I called him back. And I said, "Hi, I'm just wondering where we are with this." And he said, I'm not kidding. He said, "I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do." I said, "What?" I said, "You did see the Excel spreadsheet 500 times a day, 600 on weekends." Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, so that's how much the Catholic Church has a grip on Campbell County, Kentucky. Well, What was I going to do? I guess I was just going to decide that life was going to be terrible because I loved my apartment. I loved my neighborhood. I really couldn't afford to move. I didn't want to move. And I just thought, you can just, I don't know, you'll somehow cope. Maybe you'll just never go home again. So fast forward just a couple of weeks, and I have some friends who I hadn't seen in a long time. This is going somewhere, by the way. I had some friends I hadn't seen in a while. They said, "Hey, we got to get together for dinner." We set the day for Tuesday. And then like the day before, they said to me, "There's a speaker who's coming to town. We want to go hear the speaker. Do you want to go with us before we meet for dinner?" And the speaker was Sean Faircloth, who at the time was the executive director of the Secular Coalition for America. Now, I had already known about lots of atheist organizations. I had no idea that there were secular Americans who coalesced. And I was just over the moon. And I thought, well, he's going to maybe have some ideas and suggestions for me as far as if there's anything I can do. Do I have any rights here? So we go to the thing, and he gives this really great talk about the rise of secularism in the United States and religious preference and how it's wrong, and it was great. And in the Q&A, I explained my situation. I said, "Do you have any advice?" And the only thing he did was he said, "Well, you have the best attorney in Kentucky for that kind of thing sitting right over there." And he pointed to somewhere and then went on to the next question. I'm like, what? Who? What? So after the thing was over, I'm thinking, now, how am I going to find this guy? Well, I turned my head, and there standing in front of me, holding out his business card, was Edwin Kagan, who at the time was the National Legal Director for American Atheists. I went to his office. I talked to him about the Bell situation. And I walked out of his office with a copy of his book, Baubles of Blasphemy, an invitation to the summer picnic for the Free Inquiry of Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, and a brand new friendship with him and his wife, Helen. So we became fast friends. I ended up a few months later working as his paralegal. So that was my introduction this time around to American Atheists. My introduction to Madeline Murray O'Hare happened in 8th grade, and that's another story, but I digress. So anyway, I become fast friends with Edwin and Helen. I become his paralegal. I get to work on all the American Atheists cases. That's how I meet David Silverman. Dave and I met at Camp Quest. Edwin is the founder. Edwin and Helen were the founders of Camp Quest, which is a summer camp for atheist and agnostic and freethinker families. So anyway, I was a volunteer counselor in Camp Quest, Michigan. So was Dave. That's how we met. Not long after that, Dave becomes president. Not long after that, they need a new magazine editor. I apply for the job because that's my real background. I get the job, and here I am 7 years later, sitting in the office of the editor-in-chief and membership director of American Atheists.
All right, Pam, stop holding out on us. What happened with the bells?
They did eventually stop, but, it was really it didn't matter anymore because I had fallen into this whole new group of people that I had no idea existed right in my own city. So it was actually just kind of funny that because of these bells, American Atheists had another member.
That's what I was getting ready to say. Are you sure, Pam, that it is not by some divine intervention that the bells just tolled on the right time?
For thee.
I cannot prove that it wasn't. And when I have to give the short answer, I will say, so Pam, how'd you get involved with American Atheists? I'll say, God brought me to American Atheists.
I think that's beautiful.
Mysterious ways.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. It was not fun when I was in the thick of it, but it sure makes for a good story now.
So basically, you could say that God led you to AA.
God led me to American Atheists, yes.
That's a good shirt.
Wait, quick. Do you get that confused? A lot of people, when you say, like, I'm from AA, do they, for some, obviously, reasons?
No, because we say American Atheists.
Okay, so you don't abbreviate for that particular reason?
No, not really. Gotcha. No. And I mean, when other people do, it's understood. We don't run screaming if someone says AA because we are AA, just like the other AA is AA, but it's not that big a deal, but we don't have any logos or anything like that with just AA. Our logo just has one A.
Why would we need an American Atheist Association? Like, what is the purpose of that organization?
The purpose of that organization is to fight to keep the wall that separates religion from government standing. And the second part of our mission is to normalize atheism. And by that, we fight against, discrimination against atheists. We fight against occasions of religious privilege. And we encourage closeted atheists to come out because there are a lot of atheists in the closet, and they are everywhere. Closeted atheists are in the church pews. They're at the basketball game. They're at the football game. They're everywhere. They're up in the pulpit preaching. Some of the closet atheists.
I was there.
Yeah.
Out of the closet a very long time ago.
Well, I had to come out of the closet twice, I guess.
Were you a preacher man?
No, I wasn't a preacher man, but I'm from North Carolina, which is in the Southern Baptist.
So that's what American Atheists does. And right now, we, at this moment in the history of our government, we are facing some unprecedented challenges. The Trump administration would take an enormous wrecking ball and knock the whole thing down if they could have it their way. So we're very busy these days.
Did you get a chance to listen to the commander in Cheeto's State of the Union?
I listened to a little bit of it. Usually those things, I usually read the transcript afterwards.
I turned on my garbage disposal and it got the same effect.
Well, I was just curious because it seemed to me from an outside point of view that he was really trying to cater to the far-right evangelist quite a lot. Yeah.
That's the only base he has left.
Absolutely.
That's the base he has. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what he's going to do.
Quite notable. It was actually not just myself noting it. I was looking at Twitter feeds from various news organizations, and they were all kind of pointing that out. So.
Yep.
Let me put it in perspective to you. His number one cheerleader now is Jim Baker.
Yeah, Jim Baker, who sells
buckets
of food for your bomb shelter.
Have you seen he's got a lid now, and this is not a lie. You can feel free to look it up as soon as we get off of here, but he has custom made a toilet seat lid to store with that bucket. So in case the power goes out, you have a place to go to the bathroom.
He needs to get with Peter Popoff because Peter Popoff sells.
Oh, well, now are you guys
sell it? He gives it away, then you donate for the Miracle Spring Water. So you can have buckets of food and you have water. You have a nice little dinner.
Now the issue here is that are you guys? You're old enough to know about Tammy Faye, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Jim Baker's back. It doesn't matter how many crimes they committed. There are going to be people who want to believe, and that's just how it is. And there's so many closeted atheists atheists in this country right now that we don't even really need to think about, the ones who would never be able to be convinced that there is a possibility that there is no God.
Right.
And this, the Jim Baker thing just shows you just how strong that desire to believe and to have an answer is. Peter Popoff, he was outed by James Randi on the Johnny Carson show. So that's a really great story. James Randi was at our last national convention, which we had in August in Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, I love Charleston.
To coincide with the solar eclipse. Yeah, we go where the atheists really do have a tough time coming out of the closet. Now, this year we are going to be in Oklahoma City, and that's going to take place March 29th to April 1st. And our keynote speaker, our keynote speaker is Hugh Laurie. How cool is that?
No way.
Serious way.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh.
I know. So come on, you
House?
have to come. We got House will be in the house.
Oh,
Yeah, he is the bomb. I'll give him that.
House is the bomb. House is a Dave Silverman fan. That's how we knew that. That's how the whole thing got started. Isn't that awesome?
Incredible English accent, American accent, because he's English. He actually passes quite easily as somebody who's native born.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Have you heard him
But
sing?
the lineup's going to be great. We are going to be screening the Bill Nye film, and then we're going to be having a panel discussion with the filmmakers afterwards. We are going to be, who else is going to be here? Oh, the managing editor at Snopes, Brooke Brinkowski. She's going to be there. Natasha Stoynoff is going to be speaking. Natasha Stoynoff is the writer for People magazine who talked about her Donald Trump sexual assault experience when she interviewed him at Mar-a-Lago on the occasion of the Trump's first anniversary. She went public with that. She had kept it to herself all these years, but then when the Grab 'em by the Pussy tape came out, she said, that's it. This is just, we have to know this. This guy is running for president.
That's going to be good.
Hey, Kyle, we have a road trip. Let's go to Oklahoma City this year.
I'm telling you.
A wonderful woman whose book, I think it's the best book I've ever written. Her name is Mary Johnson. She was a nun with Mother Teresa's religious order for 20 years. And now she's an atheist, and she's a humanist celebrant. And anybody who's Catholic knows that Mother Teresa was, that was the gold standard, and it was actually just even a little higher than human.
Unless you're Christopher Hitchens.
Christopher Hitchens, I read that book, and Mary just gives you the inside story, and it's amazing. It's an amazing story. And she's going to be at the convention too. So I'm very excited about that.
Are there many atheists in Oklahoma?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's a very active organization in one of our affiliates in Oklahoma City.
Really?
Yeah, there are atheists everywhere.
Yeah,
we go where religiosity is assumed. We've been to Charleston, like I said. We've been to Memphis, Tennessee. We were in Salt Lake City. We were in Des Moines, Iowa. We go to these places first of all to let the atheists know that we exist. And the other reason is that if we were to have our convention in, Seattle or Miami or New York, we'd have a convention. But when we go to these other places, we're front page news.
Oh, good.
We are
good
front
call.
page news. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't you do it on Easter weekend too?
Yeah.
Atheists invade.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, go on. Oh, absolutely. Just exactly. Atheists descend upon, atheists invade. Yeah. Now, we put up a billboard at Christmas time in Oklahoma City that said, just like Santa Claus, the atheists are coming to town.
Oh, the world Christmas.
And
the world Christmas.
It's right. My AK-47 is permanently strapped to myself. So we put that billboard up, and it worked like a charm because the local news stations covered it, and they showed the billboard. They showed the date of the convention. They then repeated the dates and the location of the hotel, the Sheraton downtown.
That's genius.
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of backlash for that? Is there get protesters out? That's the heart of the Bible Belt of America. Those places.
We do. Yeah. Yeah, we absolutely do. And we have an absolute hard and fast rule that you need to engage in a civil way with them. If not, you can't, you can't come back inside to the convention. But we do. We get the signs and the protesters, and they're usually pretty nice people.
You need to have your next convention in the house right beside Westboro Baptist Church next year. I think that would be an epic.
Oh, yeah.
show.
Well, I've got this wish list a mile long. I want to go to Arkansas where the Duggar family lives.
Oh,
That's where
yes.
I want to go. Yeah.
How many do they have now?
19. Last night, we did an article about them a while back, and it was 19 at the point. But they're off the air. That was just some crazy stuff.
So, relative to data, how does atheism look? What are some statistics? Give us some numbers. Is atheism on the rise? Is it decreasing? Is it stagnant? What are the numbers?
Let's make sure that we are talking about how people self-identify publicly. Okay, because if you wonder where are the atheists, there are because there are so many closeted ones. The number is much bigger than I think any of us can estimate. But as far as people who acknowledge that they are atheist, agnostic, nothing in particular, that sort of thing, there's a couple of studies, and it can be as high as 25% of our population. Now, that is more than Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and Christians combined.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That is a higher number than I expected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're the Catholic population is about 20.8%.
Would that be categorized as non-believers, 25% that just don't have a God belief?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. There are people who say, I don't believe in God, but I wouldn't call myself an atheist, because the word atheist has such a bad connotation. But the reality is that everyone's an atheist. Why is everyone an atheist? Because when you go to the Oxford English Dictionary, which is the last word in English language usage, the word atheist means someone who denies or disbelieves the existence of a God, not God, a God. So that means that unless you believe in all of the gods that have ever been dreamt up, you're an atheist.
Oh.
See the smile on Kyle's face. This is what he.
Oh, yeah.
Steve's getting tricked.
Yeah, yeah. The word. And the way.
I think she's got you there.
You just got it. You did. That was a good segue there, Kyle.
Yeah.
It's not a bad word.
No.
Here's what's even better is what's the first commandment? The first commandment is to be an atheist.
The way I look at it, the Oxford Dictionary is for colloquial, general meanings.
Oh no, not at all.
No.
I got to take issue with that. That is not right. The Oxford English Dictionary, it's the definitive record of the English language, and they list every known definition and pronunciation, current and obsolete, and they trace the origins of words derived from other languages, and they provide the source of every word's earliest written appearance on record.
So what would be the definition of atheism as far as the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is the definitive measure by which philosophical terms are defined?
Here, let me Google that for you. I don't know. I think you're asking, why don't you tell us?
Well, it's defined a couple different ways. There's what's called the sensu stricto approach. That's where you look at a term and you take it very, very narrowly rather than broadly. Propositionally speaking, the term atheist has, in academics, been defined as the denial or disbelief of the proposition of theism. And when I say disbelief, that's the rejection, meaning that it's false. So the proposition of theism would be that at least one God exists. Ontologically in the universe, one God exists or more. If you think that's false, then that would be what they call a philosophical atheist or explicit atheist. So when you're looking at things like the Oxford Dictionary, yes, it does have the etymological derivation of the word, but then you run into the etymological fallacy that words are usually than what their historical meaning has been. So when I'm not labeled myself an atheist because I reject the colloquial definitions and I accept the more formal academics, which again is only a personal choice.
Right, and you make a good point, because the word atheist, and I use this example kind of because the Bible is the last word for religious belief for quite a few people. So the OED is sort of, if there's an equivalent, that's that would be the gold standard. But yeah, religion has co-opted that word and, has turned it into a word that means somebody without morals or without values or someone who cannot tell right from wrong. And that's just simply not true. And the reality is that we live in a nation today where, it's still a bad word. And that's one thing that American Atheists does, is we try to fight that stigma.
I think there's definitely an argument to be made there, yes. The fact that there's still a pejorative attachment to the word atheist, I think, is a good reason to try to normalize it. I think the word should be normalized. I don't think there should be a stigma attached to it, absolutely. But I do think that people should be able to label themselves in the way that they choose to and not be labeled by other people. I'm what's called a temporal agnostic, and I have a well-formed epistemological reasoning for that. I do read a lot about epistemical reasoning, and I think that my particular approach to the proposition of theism is an agnostic point of view where I suspend judgment on it. And again, personal. But I do think there's a valid argument to be made for political and demographic reasons why you would want to have more people self-identify as an atheist. That I definitely agree with. However, if somebody doesn't want to, I don't see the point of trying to put that label on them, because a lot of times it's not just for the fact that there's that stigma attached to it. I'm not worried about stigma, so I don't really care if people think I'm an atheist or not, if I was atheist. But since I don't self-identify with that, would you agree that I'm allowed to take the label that I want that best suits me and not have to defend myself about somebody else saying, well, you are actually an atheist, because then you run into the same thing. Well, a theist can say, well, you're actually a theist because Romans 1 says all men believe in God, but you're just denying that in your unrighteousness. It's the same kind of approach.
No, I think it's different, because when you go to the Bible for your argument, the argument doesn't exist. You're a theist because in the Bible it says that everyone's a theist. Of course, you can call yourself whatever you want. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's been my argument to be from the very beginning when it comes to the self-identification of these labels. I don't advocate one definition is the correct one over another. There are no such thing as correct or not correct definitions per se. There's just useful and more useful.
Wait a minute. Can I get that on tape? What did you just say?
Well, I don't like to have the position that certain things are right or wrong or correct or not correct. Now, obviously, if you have a definition that's so skewed from what the actual definition is, then sure, it's a wrong definition. But if you use an Oxford Dictionary or if you use Stanford Encyclopedia, either one's acceptable. I mean, the whole lack of belief is an acceptable definition. If you lack a belief in God, that is a very colloquial, it's called a sensu lato definition, broadly speaking. But again, people don't have to accept that particular definition. They can reject the dictionary and go to more philosophical sources that I particularly use.
But who are these people that are telling you that you can't use your own definition?
It's a very select group of atheists that seem to think that if you lack a belief, you're an atheist by sufficient reasoning, such that it's a necessary condition to lack a belief to be an atheist. All atheists lack a belief, whether you're a strong atheist, a weak atheist, or explicit or implicit. But it's not a sufficient condition, because I lack a belief in God because I'm a temporal agnostic, which is a necessary precondition to be an atheist. But it's not sufficient because epistemically, I don't hold that particular position.
Okay, so in the numbers that you gave us earlier, does that count for people who identify as agnostic or atheist, or does it combine everybody into an atheist category, or does it not include agnostics?
Well, we have never done, we've never done a survey. We just look at the,
Gotcha.
Pew and PRI and, those sorts of places.
Sure.
And it's up to them, how they define it. There's a PRI just released a study, and it was it took place in 2016. They just finished all their evaluation. It was a survey of 101,000 people from all 50 states. And among the religiously unaffiliated, 14% were atheists, 13% were agnostic, and 58% were secular. And they defined secular as someone who said, I'm neither agnostic nor atheist, I'm just nothing.
What is that?
Here's the problem. I don't think that most people, for lack of a better word, really think about it that deeply.
Right.
They
You're
just,
absolutely right.
yeah, and on the flip side of that, they don't think that deeply about why they are religious. Why are you going to church? Well, why wouldn't I go to church? It would never occur to somebody to not go to church because it's what you've always done.
Right.
So the important thing for American atheists is that the word atheist, if that's what you choose to call yourself, is not a pejorative term, and that a belief in a supernatural being does not give you a pass on the laws that everybody else has to obey. That's
Sure.
what's important to American atheists.
Yeah, I think that's a big takeaway is the fact that no matter whether you're an atheist, agnostic, theological incog, or whatever you want to identify as, I think almost everybody in that big umbrella group of non-theists would agree that the separation of church and state is something that must exist, and that the encroachment of religiosity into our school system is something that must be prevented at all costs.
Yes, it is, and there are plenty of religious people who also understand that the wall that separates church and state is actually the best thing for both, because church-state separation is the epitome of religious tolerance. So it's not just non-theists. It's also religious people.
Can you imagine a theist that doesn't get their particular religion? That's going to be the theocracy of the state.
Well, yeah, and that
was
exactly.
the case.
Everybody assumes that it's that it's their religion that would win out if there was
Right,
ever
exactly.
big battle. But I was raised Catholic, and Catholics are not doers. They're not a bunch of let's all get together and we're going to actively march or form something, and ISIS is. So really, who do you think's going to win if
They're
it
too
was an
tired from all
all-out
that
war?
standing and
That's a
kneeling
great point.
during Mass. I mean, that's got to wear it down on you.
Yeah, that's a really great point. The fact that I think that, unfortunately, if there wasn't a separation of church and state, I think Islam would probably be the dominant religion of America at some point.
How's it working out in the Middle East?
I don't see that.
Yeah.
No, think about it. She makes a very awesome point there. The Islamic community is a very active community to try to
That they are.
right. I mean, it's
They are.
even more so than evangelist, I would say, in some cases.
I would not. I don't know if I'd agree with it. Not in America. Maybe in.
Well, but here's the thing, though:
UK.
the Muslim population is on the rise in the United States. That's the only one that's growing. Yeah. So it is. It's not just a. It's a numbers game. It's not just a personality game. So no, this is something that's been going on for a while, and it's because of the culture. Remember the terrorists who flew the planes into the World Trade Center. They were not poor and angry and disenfranchised. They were educated people who thought that, once they finished their flight, they were going to be in paradise with 72 virgins. They honestly believed that.
Hard for me to grasp somebody honestly thinking that is a viable option. I mean,
If
I
that's
think the Earth is flat. Not much is that much difficult to believe at this point.
look, that's a whole other show.
But when you're indoctrinated into something, if that's the only worldview you're given, how are you gonna think any other way?
Right. People tend to believe the religion they're indoctrinated to, or at least exposed to more often.
Right. Isn't it a coincidence that most religious people in Asia are Buddhist, and most religious people in Israel are Jewish, and it's
Yeah, locality
It's-
sure plays a big factor in that.
absolutely, yeah, I mean, if the Word of God was that important, I mean, why did? And I have to credit Christopher Hitchens for this. Why did he show himself to a bunch of illiterate, itinerant desert people? Why not go over to China where they were already reading and writing?
Good line. Pam, you hit kind of a milestone, I believe, with the magazine. Why don't you tell us what that was?
Yes. Well, American Atheists magazine was founded by Madalyn Murray O'Hair, who was the founder of American Atheists. And when I came on board in 2011, and a few months after that, we were able to get the magazine on the shelves in bookstores around the country and on newsstands. And it's the first time in the history of the United States that a periodical with the word Atheist on it is sold in a bookstore. It's just sold, to the general public.
And how does that feel?
You know, I already pinch myself every day that I have this gig for a lot of reasons. I'm just too concerned about doing a good job with the stewardship that I've been given to really have a lot of time to like dance around and say yippee yahoo. But I have to tell you, it's a pretty incredible feeling.
How difficult was that to get into those kind of stores? Like, did you face any kind of pushback or resistance to?
Well, we work with a distributor, and they had certain standards of how the periodical had to look. It couldn't just be like a Xerox newsletter, that sort of thing. And we got the magazine looking really good as far as layout and design and kind of paper and all that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And so the distributor doesn't have a problem with it at all. We do get stories of people going into Barnes and Noble and saying that they don't like that Atheist magazine is there. And so the store manager will remove the magazine from the newsstand. But then supposedly, and this is just an anecdote that we actually got from the distributor. But then supposedly after the person left the store, they put it back on. But
with that, why would they remove something? I think that's capitulating to people. I don't,
exactly.
I'm against that. I think that's a form of censorship right there.
Of course it's censorship. But the manager, like I said, it's an anecdote, and I really have no idea, what's going on or what went on there.
Probably true stories, but you can't validate it. But
right, exactly.
It sounds like it would be true, though. I mean, that sounds like something that.
Sure. I mean, why wouldn't it be? I mean, the word atheist is a bad word in the United States.
Horrible.
Yeah. So there are people, I'm sure, who hide the magazine. But then we've got other people who, I get people calling me all the time saying, when's it going to be in the stores? Give me the date. Because, I got to go to my Barnes and Noble. So, I mean, it absolutely sells in the stores. And that's what Barnes and Noble cares about. Now, we did when the Charlie Hebdo magazine staff were murdered in January of 4 years ago now?
Yeah, it was 4.
Yeah. We put an image of. We put a cartoon image of Muhammad on the cover, and it was what it was an image of a Charlie Hebdo cover, and then that meant that it was on our cover. It was absolutely the only thing that we could do. It was just no way that I wasn't going to do that.
Good for you guys.
Because if I wasn't able to do that, then I need to step down, because it was my turn to shore up the foundation of the First Amendment. And every publisher, their turn comes around sooner or later, and that was my moment. And we were the only American print publication to even reproduce one Charlie Hebdo cartoon, let alone we were the only one to reproduce a cartoon of Charlie Hebdo that depicted Muhammad, the only one in the United States. And it was a very angry time for me, and a lot of major publications were dead to me for a while. And my editor's letter was a flowchart to all the news media in the United States. Have you printed a cartoon? Yes or no, and it was, it was absolutely one of the most important weeks of my life.
I think we have a serious problem in this country whenever you have people who are literally willing to kill you over drawing a picture of an imaginary being. And you have media outlets and corporations that kowtow to this. I mean, well,
here's the thing. If doing it is going to get you killed, don't do it. Nobody's asking you to die for this. I mean, that's stupid. We need you around to fight. So if you truly think that you are in danger, just pass for now. But if the reason you're doing it is that you don't want to offend other religious people, then shame on you.
Right.
Shame on you. The only reason we have a First Amendment is that we use it. And there are going to be times when there's going to be efforts to knock it right down. And it's the people whose job it is, who have a job in the first place because of the First Amendment. It's our duty as human beings to exercise that First Amendment right away. And I was very, I was bitterly disappointed that from what I could understand and all the reading that I did about it, it really was out of, not wanting to offend people.
Oh,
It wasn't out of fear for safety. And if it was out of fear for safety, then you just need to come out and say that.
If I worked at American Atheists, I know the one job I would love to have is the mailroom, because I am sure that you get all kind of hate mail. And to me, that would just be so much fun to read. Do you get a lot of hate mail?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. I get letters from people who are atheists saying, that article, that really kind of went over the top. You're just really pushing the envelope there. And I don't know how that's going to make atheists look good. And can't you just tone it down a little bit? I mean, even from other atheists. And it turns out that those articles are the same articles where I get comments. Wow, I'm so glad you wrote about that. And that's why offense needs to be absolutely irrelevant, absolutely positively irrelevant. 3 days ago, I got an email from somebody. He said, I'm writing some poetry, and there's spoofs on Christian hymns, and I don't want to offend anybody with this. I want to put a good face on atheism. I'm wondering if I could sort of just run this by you, and you can give me your feedback about where I'm going too far. And I wrote back to him and I said, I don't need to see any of your work because none of it goes too far. And the only work that would be unacceptable to me would be that the work that you don't publish because you're afraid of offending someone. And he wrote back and he said, thank you for the vote of confidence, but I really do think that we atheists need to stick together, and so I'm just going to find somebody else to run this by.
Or who the most offensive group is usually the religious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Comedy. I mean, so he knows all about the fine line between offending people and having a good joke. And pushing that envelope because
and it's all audience and it's all context.
Sure.
I'm not going to be wearing an American Atheist T-shirt to my cousin's baby's baptism. I'm just not going to do that.
Right. That same situation. Like my cousin found out recently she has cancer. She'll be okay, but she was on Facebook praising Jesus that it wasn't worse, that it didn't metastasize the lungs. I wasn't going to tell her, well, why did Jesus give you cancer in the first place?
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely not.
Yeah, at that time, yeah. A few years ago, let's see, this was maybe the 4th of July in 2011, I believe. We hired some airplanes to fly "Atheism is Patriotic," those banners like over stadiums. We did that on the 4th of July, and we did it in 3 cities. And, that was offensive to some people. And
you can't write this stuff. I mean, you really can't.
You don't have to. Oh, please. I got material to take me into 2050. But anyway, okay, so that was offensive. Now, it was not even 55 years ago that it would have been offensive that you had to share your park and your 4th of July picnic space with a black family.
Absolutely.
I mean, offensive is just not.
And they could back that up in the Bible. They could actually point to a verse that would justify why you had to have separate parks and why you couldn't.
And the next issue of the magazine, in the second quarter, or first quarter issue of American Atheist magazine, for 2017, we're going to be publishing an article about how the Bible condones slavery, and there is nowhere in the Bible that doesn't even bring up the debate about whether it is wrong or right. It just is. And that includes 100%. Jesus himself.
The people that are advocating freedom of religion should be the same people advocating freedom from religion. It works both ways. You can't just have a unilateral approach to that.
No, and I think that, and I have to say, coming from the privileged position of religion growing up, I'm a Caucasian Catholic, and so everything fit right into my worldview. And when you are in that privileged position and somebody comes along and wants to put a menorah next to the nativity scene that's in front of City Hall, I get that's that kind of feels weird and offensive, and what are you doing? This is our tradition. I think that's only natural. But the people who really want to understand do understand. And, after you have a conversation with them, we sued an animal shelter, a county animal shelter in New Jersey a few months ago. And I had a fundamentalist woman call me and she said, I read this in the news. This really, the puppies and the kittens, come on.
Wait, you sued an animal shelter, Pam?
We did, because they had a blessing of the animals. It was a county shelter, and they facilitated a blessing of the animals.
Okay.
So anyway, I had this conversation with her. She said, help me understand. And I just said, this is a religious ceremony. And just because this is a wonderful place that does good things, these are tax dollars, and you cannot accommodate and provide for a religious ceremony. Well, what about all the animals that won't get adopted? Well, you know how many shelters there are in the same county that don't have tax funding? Why don't you take your blessing there and bring attention to that shelter?
How much flack did you get for this one?
We got enough flack that my whole editor's letter is about when atheists send us hate mail.
Oh man. Oh, Pam, there had to be, just a little bit of hesitation when you're faced with suing a animal shelter. You had to have hesitated on that. Did you?
Did we hesitate? No. Violations. If you want to get a foothold into violating church-state separation, bring in the animals or the children, because nobody wants to go after the animals or the children.
Good point.
But as far as the question of, well, aren't there bigger fish to fry with all the problems in the world? Well, violations on a larger scale evolve from these little ones, and nipping them in the bud is the most efficient and cost-effective way to uphold the wall. And it's really no different than taking a $10 antibiotic to fight an infection that would otherwise hospitalize you if it went untreated.
Okay.
$10 now, or a prolonged, expensive hospital stay later when your long-term health is at risk, or you're away from your family and your livelihood, and then saddled with a medical bill exponentially higher than $10. That's the situation. If we let, quote, little violations fester and spread, that shame on us. There's no justification for delaying action.
Valid point.
And even you never know when you might have a problem with a violation that nobody else has a problem with.
Right.
And you can come to us, and if there is a case, we'll go to bat for you. The only time we hesitate is when we think we don't have a violation.
And what happened with that case? With the
it's still in process. We filed our complaint, and they haven't responded yet. They have a certain amount of time to respond, and we will keep you. It's all up on our website, and we'll keep everybody posted on that. But yeah, that's what American Atheists does. We're kind of thought of as the Marines of free thought, because we're going to, go where other people might hesitate to go. And it's important. It's just very important.
Do you ever get tired and feel like you're fighting uphill all the time?
Well, we're not fighting uphill. It's not uphill at all. We're making great strides. And I do have to tell you that I cannot come up with the words that adequately describe how good it is that I'm doing something about this every day now that we have the Trump administration.
Oh, yes.
It's so helpful. It is so helpful that I don't have to quit my day job to join the resistance.
How big of a threat is he?
Huge.
In what way?
A lot of ways. I would say that the biggest worry really isn't him. My biggest worry is Americans who don't vote. The highest voter turnout comes from conservative Republicans and conservative Christians.
Yep. Or
really conservatives of any ilk. It's liberals. It's people who read my magazine. It's people who have a more liberal bent to things, that they don't understand that the ballot is not. It's not a menu. It's not a restaurant menu. You can't just go to another restaurant if you don't like what's on the appetizer list. The deal is that you live in a democracy, and the burden of the choice is on you. And if you hate Hillary and you hate Trump, that's too bad. You have to make a choice, because this is the deal.
Thank you.
If you want a pope or a king to make the decisions for you, then go live, under a pope or a king. And I don't think that that's really taught to people enough. That it really is. It's not. Well, if you don't like the flavor, you'll just come back next week.
Right. It blows my mind that the people that don't vote and the people that go to vote and write in another name aside from who's actually on the ballot just baffle me. I mean, it blows my mind to think that you would waste. If those people, if even a fraction of those people had actually voted, then we wouldn't be in the mess that we're in right now.
That's too bad. Neither was I. Neither was I. Hillary lost my support when she voted to go to war in Iraq, but I voted for her.
Both the DNC and the RNC need to get their shit together. They put up crap candidates.
Third party.
Yeah, no, I would have gone a third party.
In the meantime, while we are waiting for them to get their shit together, we need to get our shit together and understand why not voting is simply not an option.
How do you motivate them though? Like
exactly. Well, that's the eternal question. And there's nothing that interests me more right now. There's nothing that interests me more. So if you find out, then please just
I have an idea.
Help me know.
I have an idea. And I'm serious about this. I think that if they found a way to release a ballot to your phone or your tablet that was secure, maybe to your email address or your telephone number, and people could vote that way, then I think that you would have a almost 90% turnout. I mean, people are just mobile now and they want to do something while they're in line. So if you figured out a way to make a secure one-time ballot to a phone,
that's not going to happen anytime soon. I mean, clearly, it's been made obvious to us that the internet can control an election entirely. Sure. So while I see that is something that if it could work, it would be great. For a few decades, we're not going to have that yet, and there's just got to be. We got to figure out other. I don't know. Make cookies for your friends. I don't know what it is. Now, I'm lucky, because ever since I was an infant, on election day, my parents would bring me to the polls. It was just something that you did. So I grew up understanding it's something that you did. Even if it was easier for my dad to vote on his way home from work, he would come home from work. He'd say, "Oh, come with me. I'm going to go vote." And that's the reason they did that. Yeah. And in hindsight, it's like, oh, I see why you did that, because now it's just inconceivable that you wouldn't vote.
Right.
Okay. And that's exactly why. So, I'm lucky in that way. I'm also lucky that I had an opportunity to interview Holocaust survivors for Steven Spielberg's Survivors of the Shoah Foundation. So I know people who have lived through something that is not a democracy. I also was an English instructor to professionals and executives from Mexico and South America. Every single one of those people at one point or another in their own lifetime had lived under something that's not a democracy. And so I see the people. I mean, I know them. I know they exist. I know it exists. And I understand that quite a few Americans don't have those opportunities. And it's easy to think that democracy just is, and it's not.
That it's not just voting for the president, but voting on a local level too. I mean, voting for superintendents and voting for people that are controlling of the local municipalities and the local cities.
And that's where we are focusing our efforts right now, because at the federal level, nothing's going to happen anytime soon that's going to be in favor of church-state separation. The best we can do is keep up what we have. But at the local level, American Atheists actually has initiatives where we are going around to schools, and really anybody can join this initiative that we have. Abstinence-only sex education is being taught in public schools all around the country and not just in the South. And we have created a toolkit for people. And if they're so inclined, they can go to their school and, first talk to the principal and then maybe talk to the school board and that sort of thing. And we've been able to phase out some abstinence-only education in a couple of public schools in the country. And that's where it's gonna make the biggest difference right now. And it's those local changes that really, those are what build the solid foundation for, the rest of the stuff. And it can make a difference. It can make a huge difference.
It does. I mean, it absolutely does. And this is what I was kind of going back to a little bit ago. It just seems like you have so many different things going on from so many different fronts, but you guys are actually making great progress and great strides, and it's actually working. It seems like it's latching and taking hold.
Oh, yeah, it absolutely is latching and taking hold for a lot of reasons. One is that, there are a lot of closeted atheists, and so it's just a matter of letting them know that we exist. We don't even have to go find them. We just have to We have that's why we do our billboard campaign at Christmas. Is that it makes national news, it makes local news, and then all of the atheists in the closet who are watching the news see this organization. I mean, there's a whole organization. I'm not the only atheist on the planet. Even better is when you will have a clergy person denounce our quote unquote war on Christmas from the pulpit, because then the atheists in the church pews learn about us. We're never going to get to those people unless it's through the preacher. So and they're out there, and they're more and more come out every day.
By the way, you guys should sell a shirt that says War on Christmas. I'm telling you, you would sell out.
We have the AK-47s that have War on Christmas on the side. So why do we need a limo shirt? Well, we haven't done the background check on you yet. We we require a background check for those. Yeah, the non-existent War on Christmas.
That's awesome.
Pam, you are a great guest. I mean, we have went well over time that we had scheduled. So
do I got to pay you guys overtime now?
I mean, we won't say no to money. Actually, we'll donate it to the animal shelter. Just kidding.
Go through convention for us one more time, and then tell people where they can go to subscribe to the magazine if they like, and get more information just from the organization as a whole.
Sure. Well, everything is on our website, atheists.org. And if you want to just zero right into the magazine, it's atheists.org/magazine. If you'd like to become a member, I mean, we do all this stuff because of member support. Without member support, we're just a bunch of well-meaning people with some good ideas. So please, I urge you, if you have enjoyed this podcast, if you have enjoyed listening to me and my hosts, please join us at even the individual level, which is $35. We have a monthly program of continuing sponsorship at $10 a month makes an enormous difference. atheist.org/join. That's where you can find that. Now, the convention is going to be March 29th to April 1st at the Sheraton Oklahoma City Downtown Hotel. And we've got special pricing for students. We've got special pricing for military. We have members get in at a lower price than non-members. And we're going to have 3 days packed of parties and stand-up comedy. We're going to be doing a service project to help a local food pantry. We're going to have awesome speakers. You are going to rub elbows with like-minded people who just love being there, and you're going to meet some great people. You're going to hear Hugh Laurie in person.
How cool is
I still cannot believe it.
Did I have you at Laurie?
You had me at Laurie.
Did
yes.
I have you at Laurie? Yeah.
I was
am a huge fan
obsessed
of
with
him.
that show.
Yeah,
I was obsessed with that show.
Mm-hmm. Leanne Lord, who's a stand-up comic, is going to be performing.
Oh wow, she's good.
We've got it, man. We've got the speakers and our the people who attend. I just can't tell you, they're all ages, but we just all have such a good time with each other. It's the camaraderie for that alone. I mean, never mind that you're going to learn a whole bunch of stuff. You're going to meet a whole bunch of cool people. You're going to be doing some good for, the local community. You're going to be going to some great parties. Let's say none of that worked out. The camaraderie alone is just such a special thing. And I just encourage you, if you've been thinking about it, this is the year to do it. We also get ongoing coverage, but we get the front page news ahead of time, which is great for the locals to know that our convention exists. That's some more free advertising.
Well, I think you guys should come to North Carolina next year.
I would love to come to North Carolina. I've been to, what's the name of the beach I was at in North Carolina? Anyway, it was wonderful.
Holden, Emerald Isle, Oak Island.
I was in Wilmington. That's where it was.
Oh, Wilmington's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's interesting because different parts of the country, and every time that one of them comes through or here on business or whatever, they always say they're in the South, but it doesn't feel like they're in the South. You know what I mean? It feels, and of course, I don't see it that way.
I relocated to Cranford, New Jersey to work at the American Atheists headquarters full time. So I did a huge uproot And I have to tell you, I really do pinch myself every day. This organization does so much real, concrete, lasting good that I get to be a part of. And I can't think of anything more satisfying. Maybe consuming 3 pizzas a day and gaining no weight,
Or church bells.
Well, that wasn't satisfying. I couldn't do anything about those.
It is what led you to.
I'm telling you, that's right. And the funny story, I worked remotely for a few months while I packed up and everything. And as a membership director, I was printing up the membership cards. And I'm sitting in my home office. And at 6 o'clock, the bells still went. They eventually stopped at some point with every 15 minutes, but they would go off like gangbusters at noon and 6. And it was 6 o'clock, and they were going off, for their 90-second extended dance mix. And I'm sitting here printing out these membership cards, and I just said, every time a bell rings, an atheist gets a membership card.
That's awesome.
And those bells never sounded sweeter than they did that day.
Well, I guess the bell should be ringing because you at least picked up one more member here today. I will be
Wonderful.
Filling out my membership when we close out of here and making it official.
Thank you so much.
We'll get Steve eventually once he...
Oh, I'm so deep in the closet. No, I'm just kidding.
I get asked all the time, do you have to be an atheist to be a member? Not only do you not have to be an atheist, you don't even have to be an American. We have people all over the world who support us, and we have a lot of religious people who support us because they understand that church-state separation is best for both.
Well, Pam, when you get Steve McRae's membership card, it'll be time for you to retire. I mean, that'll be your biggest. That'll be your big dick.
Yeah,
Aren't you into church-state separation, Steve?
I'm sorry, what?
Aren't you into church-state separation?
Oh, absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so I can count on you for a membership too.
We'll see. We'll see.
Hey! You've done a positive.
You know what? I have no problem with being a member of a specific group for specific reasons, such as that. I am all supportive of that particular thing. I do believe very strongly in separation of church and state. And I think what you do in the organization for that is remarkable, and I do support that wholeheartedly.
Good. It takes money, so I'm looking forward to your membership.
I got some spare change here.
It does. It takes money. Sorry, we have to. I wouldn't be doing my job if I weren't asking both of you for money, and then also for the listeners. Atheists.org, American Atheist National Convention, March 29th to April 1st in Oklahoma City, with Hugh Laurie as our keynote speaker.
That's all you need to know.
That's all you need to know.
Well, Pam, thank you so much for coming on, and we need to have you back to.
I would love. I had such a good time.
You're
this
a
was
wonderful guest. This is great.
Oh well, you guys are awesome
I
too.
think this was one of my more favorite ones so far.
Aw.
Well, that will do it for this episode of Non Sequitur. We'd like to thank Pamela Whissle once again for stopping by and giving us all that great information. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to www.atheist.org. Most importantly, we'd like to thank you, the listener, for taking the time out of your day to join us here. If you like what you hear, please feel free to subscribe and share, and also contact us with any feedback or questions that you might have. We're constantly trying a better show, and your input definitely puts us on the right track to doing that. Video versions of this and other episodes are available on YouTube. You can see these by going to youtube.com/NonSequitur Show or on our website at NonSec Show. That's NonSeq Show.com. There you can also get information on upcoming episodes, guests, details from this and other episodes, along with connecting with us on social media. Join us next Tuesday for another episode of Non Sequitur. I'm Kyle Curtis. That's Steve McRae. And remember, dream on, never hide, stay bold.